Hey, what's up, everybody? Video 44 coming at you with another video. All right, so I want to talk some basketball on my way out the door, man, because I've been doing a lot of homework on this draft, and I have some new thoughts on some players. Of course, after doing a lot of homework on some of the guys at the top of the draft, I've done plenty of studying some of them dudes in the second round, in the back of the first round. But I realized, as I was going through my process, and some of these guys at the top that we keep hearing their names a million times, those are the guys I actually neglected to do homework on. Hearing a lot about them, but not really digging in on the film and some of the studies that are out there for us to pay attention to. And so that's what I kind of dedicate the last 2 days to. More or less, there's still a lot of work I'd like to do before doing my mock draft, which needs to be done probably before Saturday. Since the draft, I believe, is on Wednesday. So I don't know if I'll stretch it all the way to the last minute, but at this point, there's still more work for me to do. But for now, I have some prospects in my head near the top of the draft, some of the more familiar names, and I have some thoughts that I want to give you guys. So the first name I want to talk about is Ace Bailey, the guy who's projected to be the number 3 overall prospect. Although it seems like his draft stock is falling, you got a combination of people having a lot of questions about him and him handling his draft stock as if he wants to be a bit reserved about who he works out with. I just think it comes together to make it look like he's about to get pushed aside for other draft names that are a bit more certain, I guess you could say, about what it is you expect him to be. It's funny because I did homework on this guy last night, actually early this morning. Woke up out of my sleep at like 3 a.m. and that's exactly what I grabbed my phone and did randomly, and finally really sat down and thought about looking at film on him. And you know what I gathered from him is that he's a really talented shot maker, a really talented explosive player, but he has some really messed up weaknesses, man. And that's the problem. He has some messed up weaknesses in the sense that he's not a very good ball handler. He doesn't particularly have great passing ability, and those two things are really bad to have it going on at the same time on the offensive end. On the defensive end, he's young-minded, I guess you can say, ball watching a little bit. He does have great tools. He seems to be very fast. His explosiveness does show on the defensive end, but ultimately he's a guy who's going to shoot a lot, not be overly efficient, not particularly expected to be a connective piece, but ain't really that great at putting the ball on the floor and creating for himself. So if you put a bit of ball pressure on him, you start finding out that you may be able to force turnovers, may be able to force him into making mistakes. So when you have all that going on in a high usage, high volume like piece, it makes for a very difficult opportunity to see him be successful as you would draft him to be projected, if that makes any sense. You draft him to be a go-to guy, but he has some deficiencies that make it so that you don't want to put the ball in his hands too much too soon. So you know that you're going to have to take your time with him. You know it's going to take a couple years for his development, but him being drafted 3rd overall or anywhere in that range makes you feel like maybe you can better utilize that asset if you're a team, especially like Philadelphia, where he's projected to go, who may not have the environment for him to succeed in, given the fact they're a win-now team, given the fact they have other players that are going to have the ball in their hands a lot, given the fact that they have a coach that doesn't really play young players. So while that might not be as big of a problem, given the fact that you probably don't expect him that he's ready right now, it can be a problem when considering, if you're Philadelphia, whether or not you want to use the 3rd overall pick, a very valuable asset in a pretty good draft, on him. So I think the environment it's not the worst environment for him. And I do think the fact that they have a coach that doesn't play young players in a rare situation like this, for him specifically, could be a good thing. But for the Philadelphia 76ers, you have a hard time with thinking that it's going to take 4 years for this particular prospect to become what it is you want him to become, only for him to project to be a player that's not going to help you in some areas that complement the other guys that you expect to carry forward. I don't think he particularly fits well with Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain necessarily. right? I don't think so. And so I don't know that I'm taking Ace Bailey, but I also don't think that the players behind Ace Bailey's for the Philadelphia 76ers specifically, you can really say is better for them either. When you're passing up on a guy who's 6'10", this is a Sixers team that needs to get younger and needs to get taller. He's the best tall young prospect in the range of the three. After that, you're looking at guys that are going to add to their size disadvantage on the wing. VJ Edgecombe's not very tall. You start talking about some other guys back there, not very tall, or they got centers. Do you want to use the 3rd overall pick on a center? To me, it just speaks to a lot of different things where you say, you know what, Philadelphia is damned if they do, damned if they don't, unless they find a legitimate solution for the 3rd overall pick that doesn't have them using it right now. I think if I'm them, I probably do what New Orleans just did, or rather Indy just did. Indiana traded the 17th overall pick for New Orleans' 26th first-round pick, next year's first round. Because you don't need to be bringing in a kid that you're going to take 4 years to develop when your timeline is right now. And if you're not going to rebuild, then you could probably better utilize that asset elsewhere. So that's what I think about Philly. As it pertains to Ace Bailey, where do I want him to go? I have it in my head that he should probably be somewhere like Brooklyn, where they're starting over, or a team like Phoenix, where they should be starting over. Like, and granted, Phoenix ain't gonna get the 3rd overall pick. No way, that's not happening. But this is the type of situation where I was like, I would rather him go to a situation that has a Devin Booker in place to kind of help him, has a Paul George in place to kind of help him, but also a team that's not going to be moving in the direction that needs to win right now, like Philly, or necessarily a team like Washington where everybody around him is very young and there's nobody there to really teach him how to be a pro, teach him how to utilize his strengths, teach him some things. So it's like maybe a team like Dallas would be good for Ace Bailey. None of the places that he has a chance to go to, basically. I don't like him in Utah necessarily, surrounded by a bunch of kids. That's not a great situation in my opinion. Although there could be some guys like Jordan Clarkson, if he resigns, it could help him along the way, but not really. Bunch of kids there. Washington, in a nutshell, for the basketball floor, it looks like an opportunity that he could thrive in. But then when you look at who's on the team, you know, maybe Chris Middleton could kind of help him. They may be trying to get rid of Marcus Smart, so the vets are not in place. I think Ace Bailey needs a combination of veteran leadership around him and a team with a long enough rope who needs the scoring that he provides so that he can be developed into what it is he's projected to become. And I don't know that there is a situation like that in the NBA at all. I don't know that he has a perfect fit in this league. And that is concerning in and of itself. So for me, Ace Bailey, what I did like about Ace Bailey that was kind of subtly spoken about was how well he does on the offensive rebounding side of things. He tends to find himself in the right place at the right time when the ball flies off the rim. So I think his rebounding projection could be a bit better than people think, especially when it comes to second chance opportunities. He's very explosive. And so I really like that about him. He's a shooter. Even though he tends to take bad shots, he's a tough shot maker, a bad shot taker, so to speak. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, for him, certain shots you're just going to accept that you wouldn't accept for most people because it's his functionality to take stuff that maybe others shouldn't. But it's just the same. It's not something that he's overly great at because of the ball handling deficiencies that are in place. You know, he's not a great catch and shoot player, but he can shoot well off the dribble, but can't really dribble. So it's just a lot of stuff wrong there. And I understand why people are very high on Ace Bailey because of the length and the height. The tools are all there. The explosiveness and the speed is all there. I love all of that. But the issues with him, just like a couple other players in this draft, it's like you got these things that go together that are deficiencies that you really don't want in your players in today's league. You know, you got this wrong and this wrong. Those are the two things we definitely don't want together being wrong, so to speak, as it pertains to certain prospects. So that's what I see there. Just some things that are really wrong with this player that make me wonder if he's not a high bust potential player. I don't think too many people would be surprised if he doesn't make it in the league 5-6 years from now. That's the problem with Ace Bailey. I think you have more people that are leaning toward him not making it, more or less, than he would, especially if you're going to take him as high as 3. So for me, while Philadelphia doesn't have many great options, Ace Bailey probably isn't a great option. I don't know that Philadelphia has great options if they're going to draft that pick. If they're going to draft that pick, they probably will take Ace Bailey, because the lesser of many evils is to just take the highest upside piece that gives you the length, the height, which they've been deficient in, and the youth for which they're deficient in. And he's a high-level player that could turn into a star. You probably just take him anyway and just accept the fact that you're wasting the 3rd overall pick on a player that's not going to help you right away when you got a win-now timeline. And a player that may not really fit with what you have later on if you do pivot. So I don't know about Ace Bailey, man. I tell you the truth, I don't know about him. I've listened to a lot of the pessimists, and I was skeptical that they were making any sense until I did my own homework, and I realized, yo, I'm one of them too. I'm not a believer that he has the greatest situation available in these drafts, in the draft range that he's in. I just don't think there's many good fits for him. Dallas would have been a good fit for him. Next to Kyrie, teach him how to dribble a little bit. Next to Anthony Davis, and with the ability to say they're not going anywhere anytime soon. But of course, they're not taking him because they're going to take Cooper Flag. You understand what I'm saying? But like these are the type of fits that I think would have worked. And it's just hard to see him being able to be in that situation. You know, Boston would have been interesting as well, given the fact that they got a free year with Jason Tatum being out with the Achilles. You have to wonder if he's going to be somebody that could help their team in a one-year situation. Just kind of shoot the ball, help them tank, not for like half a year, figure that out. Maybe New Orleans could be pretty interesting, given the fact they let Brandon Ingram go. I think he could be in a situation where they're not expected to do too much next year. So if he falls to New Orleans, I think that'd be a good situation, potentially probably the best situation for the combination of things that he may need and they may need. So I could see that not being a bad situation if he drops to 7. But yeah, Ace Bailey at 3 it's not the worst situation, but I don't foresee that being the greatest situation for him. And so and I definitely don't love it for Philadelphia. So that's what I'm gonna say about Ace Bailey. But do understand that the athleticism, explosiveness, the speed, the shot making does make for him being one of the top prospects in this draft. There's a lot to like, but there's some things that come together that I just think probably should not go together as it pertains to issues and deficiencies. All right, so the next player that I think I want to mention is probably Asingbe, Noah Asingbe. And I did some extensive homework on him yesterday as well. He's projected to go somewhere between 7 and 14, somewhere in there, probably in the higher side of that. I like this piece because he is also a speed demon. When you talk about trying to create an environment where pace is key, you can expect he's going to run down the floor really fast. You can expect that when he's in a straight line, he's going to dribble and get to the rim rather quickly. He has long, extremely long arms. He's like 6'10", so he has great measurements for the NBA. I do wonder if this guy is going to ever project to be a pretty good shooter. Right now, I think he's shooting like 20-something% from behind the arc. But the defensive intensity is there. The lateral quickness with the height and length is there. So you see I saw a comp that really worked for me, and that's Tayshaun Prince. For those of us who remember Tayshaun Prince from the Detroit 04 championship days, he reminds me of Tayshaun Prince without the consistent three-point shot. If Tayshaun couldn't shoot, you'd have Noah Asingbe. They're wiry, super long, probably still growing, and just really, really quick left to right. Looks like the tools defensively are there. He's not a perfect defender, but his length and his tools, as they call them, should allow for him to have a high floor, very high floor. And I think his ceiling is damn high too. And so this is a player that I think could go as high as 6, especially given what Washington is used to doing in a lot of situations. Taking French guys with long arms and stuff like that. I could totally see them doing that again with him, and I don't think it would be the worst decision for them to maybe go toolsy with their pick. And this guy is the epitome of tools, man. I could also see him slipping a little bit if people don't trust the shot or don't expect that he's going to be a super high upside player like that, because I've heard people compare him to Giannis, and I don't see nothing like that. But a Tayshaun Prince type piece, I do see the passing ability, I believe, is there. He's not a great connective passer, but he does have the ability to be unselfish. But what you're getting him for is finishing ability. He definitely finishes well. And somebody who's going to provide a great deal of intensity on the defensive end with length to boot. And with some of the question marks or limitations of some of the other players in this top 10 range, 12 range or whatever, there's some real questions about a lot of these guys, if not all of them. I think that there's a decent chance that he goes higher than people expect, because he's a lot safer in a sense that if you're trying to utilize the most for your high pick, he has a guy who has one of the highest ceilings in this draft. So it's going to take some time, just like with Ace Bailey, but because he's got long arms, because he has defensive ability, because he can explode some, you just love the idea of Noah Asingbe in most situations. He's going to be easy to pick and plug, and he should be able to play multiple positions as he continues to put on weight. He should be able to guard some threes and some fours. You're likely going to be comfortable putting him on some twos. He may be able to guard some ones as well. So I like Noah Asingbe, man. I think you're going to like him too if you draft him past 5, basically past 5. I think he's good value, but you're gonna have to wait on him a little bit in most situations. So I like him in Brooklyn. I like him in Toronto. I like him in Houston. I like him in all them situations. So yeah, man, that's what I think of Noah Asingbe. Definitely somebody I look forward to seeing run the floor. All right, the next player I want to talk about is Derek Queen. Derek Queen out of Maryland. He's like a 6'10" dude, plays like a guard, but has some very unique intangibles on the defensive end that makes him polarizing. And what that means to me is he's a guy who, because he has quick hands and a long, just huge frame, he's able to steal the ball quickly. He can do a lot of things, almost like D'Angelo Russell, as we look back on what D'Lo was able to do defensively as an Ohio State prospect. Because he had cat-like quick hands, it made up in some areas for the overall positional deficiency and just not overly high IQ defense. He's going to be able to stumble into things just based off his cat-like quick hands. Other than that, defensively, he's not very good. But he is one of the better rebounders in this draft class. And because he's so positionally fluid, especially on the offensive end, you think that he could really do some great things for you in a lot of situations. Problem is, he's a high usage guy, so he doesn't fit in a lot of situations. He's a guy who's like 6'10", who is likely going to need the ball in his hands at the top of the key to dribble a lot and to create plays, drive at the rim. He finishes very well. He gets to the line like crazy, as you can imagine, with a big frame and a dribbling center. He's unique, man. For me, one of the things I want to see, and I know I'll never see this, is what does it look like if a team like Brooklyn drafts both him and Wolf, who project to have the same strengths. 6'10" dudes that are basically guards. I want to see them both on the same team. I think that could create a dynamic that we've never seen before. When you have two big guys who are primary ball handlers and you surround them with defensive players, athletes, and shooters. What does that look like? Because I think what we see in the NBA right now is everybody's trying to follow who's been successful. So when you hear people talk about the NBA and what teams should be doing right now, the first thing they think about is OKC and Indiana. Recency bias creates a certain idea about how teams should draft. These are the teams that made it. This is what we should do. But it's not about what's working right now. It's about what you're going to create that's going to be able to overcome what's working right now. And for me, in my 2K brain, my NBA 2K brain, I'm curious to see what it looks like, not only when you have one big that you put the ball in their hands and you force them to be the focal point of your offense, but what happens when you have two of them? was when you talk about trying to be impossibly unguardable, size and ball handling, dribbling, and going toward the basket are things that must be dealt with. And when you talk about switchability and things like that, if you have two players like that cannot be guarded because they're so big and so dribbly, so to speak, and you putting the ball in both of their hands and having them play off one another, I have reason to believe that's almost impossible to stop. And so if I'm a team like Brooklyn, I'm going to try to put myself in a position with the picks that I have to take both of them dudes, and I'm going to let them be who I build around and see what happens. But see, I'm a gambler when it comes to stuff like that. I don't think NBA is going to do that. But I want to see Wolf and Queen on the same team. Now back to Queen. I think for me, I just think that's what it comes down to. You have to have him on your team as the focal point of your offense if you're going to get the most out of him as this high of a draft prospect. And he may not be good enough of a player overall to justify that, but he's so incredibly unique and difficult to incorporate into just every situation to it's almost what you have to do. So I don't know, just like with Ace Bailey, I don't know that you have many situations that really fit Derek Queen. Like, for example, you put him in Chicago, I don't think he really fits there. He may be projected to be drafted there, but they got Kobe White. You got all those guys that you put the ball in their hands for passing, like Giddey if they re-sign him, Lonzo if he keeps staying there, if he's still there. They have a bunch of guys that also share the ball. Now, they'll be willing to get him the ball to finish, but that's not how you get the most out of Derek Queen. How you get the most out of Derek Queen is that you get him the ball and you ask him to create for himself. And he can pass for others as well. He's a very good passer. So you got this 6'10" guard that's really built like, I would say a tank, but he's not conditioned well enough to even say he's that type of strong. But he's like an Andre Blatche type piece, but doesn't shoot the three as well as Andre Blatche. And I think he's quicker and more advanced than Andre Blatche just in general. For those who remember Andre Blatche and how unique he was, you also remember how he didn't really make it in the NBA. I think some of that had to do with stuff that had to do with his character or whatever, but I think most of that had to do with how difficult he is to incorporate into a situation to get the most out of him. And when you got a player that you're going to draft somewhere in the lottery, that's what it is you're trying to sell yourself on being able to do, is get the most out of him. So for me, I take Derek Queen in very specific situations, and they're usually the type of situations that are going to be able to shift their entire focus to getting the most out of that player. Because if you don't, I don't think you can justify taking him as high as he's supposed to be going based on what it is you're going to get out of him when you bring him to you. He's not a pick and plug. You can't just toss him into any situation. You kind of want to use him as the measuring tool for what goes on from there. If you want to do it right. And I just don't know that any of these teams are in a position to do that. I think Portland is probably where he's projected to go right now. They could use the scoring. They have a lot of defense, but they also have a lot of other players that they like to put the ball in their hands to share a little bit. I think he could end up being a sixth man in that situation early on, which could be pretty good. But they would have to shift their entire offense in that second unit to fit what it is that he does, just like I said. So that's where I see him kind of like a sixth man. Not because he's not good enough to be a starter, but because most teams have a very connective identity to their starting lineup. Pass, 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 score, pass to the open guy in the corner, all this. He can pass, but he's not a finishing big, and he's too damn big to be on the floor positionally to not be a part of something that's going to allow for him to do so. So that's kind of what it is for me. He's just a unique player. You got to figure out how to utilize him. If anything, I just think that Derek Queen, if he were just a more sound defensive big man, if you could count on him to give you block shots and stuff like that more consistently and just be better positionally fit to guard multiple positions, he would be a much easier plug into most situations, because you could at least say, well, maybe I can't utilize him on the offensive side, but I can get the most out of him defensively. But in this situation, I don't know that that's the case. I don't know that he's not deficient as much of a defender to where you don't really feel that comfortable not getting the most out of him offensively. I guess Ace Bailey is a player where I don't have that problem. If I can't get the most out of Ace Bailey, I do think I can utilize him off the ball very well, catching lobs and stuff like that, and defensively weak side help situations, overall speed on the defensive end and length. I can get the most out of him defensively in the short term while I figure out what the hell to do with him offensively. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. But with Queen's a bad defender for the most part, with the exception of the quick hands. And so he's like a big D'Angelo Russell without the three ball. And that's another thing. He doesn't shoot the three very well. So can you justify in modern times putting the ball in his hands as much as you're going to want to run your offense when he can't create for the three? And so, you know, this draft class, this is what I want to say about this draft class. A lot of people love this draft class a lot because it has high upside pieces. But a lot of these guys have issues that you really don't want in the modern NBA. When you're trying to build like OKC and Indy, like most people are saying they want to, these are not the greatest pieces that mirror those things in a lot of cases. It's some of the players that are further down in the draft that kind of fit that mold a bit better. And I just wonder if it's not going to force, in a copycat league, certain teams to pass on higher prospect guys for more pick and plug connective, switchable defensive two-way players. Because that's what I'm thinking. From a lot of these teams, I would rather have a Drake Powell than some of these dudes. Even though that Drake Powell's not better than these guys on paper, what he is somebody that I can put in more situations, who's going to help me on the defensive end, chase around screens, hit a three-point shot from the corner, finish at the rim. Very simple stuff. Carter Bryant, same thing. Even though he can't create for himself, you want players that can score the ball in the corner and defend all the positions and be tall enough and toolsy enough to do everything you need them to do so that you can pick and plug these players as you see fit. There's some guys there who do that, but they're not the top tier guys. And so that's what I see there. Derek Queen, you got people who love him a lot. I heard somebody say they take him as high as 3 at Philly. I mean, Philly could be an interesting place for Derek Queen only because I think that what you kind of have with Joel Embiid is that need to put the ball in the center's hand and stuff like that. And so, do I think that's the worst situation for Derek? I don't. But am I taking him as high as 3 in this draft? I don't. Absolutely not. No. But I understand the vision if they trade down, making Derek Queen somebody they pick up. He is from Maryland. He could go to Washington. I think that would be a decent spot for him as well, given the fact that they can kind of turn to him for a lot of offense. I don't think they have a great offensive talent outside of Jordan Poole, who they're probably going to move if they have an opportunity to. A lot of their guys are role players anyway, or defensive-minded players. So you could put the ball in Derek Queen's hands and let him fly. But Derek Queen, you might find yourself loving a few other players a bit more than Derek Queen if you're the Washington Wizards at 6. So if they were to trade down maybe to 8, just a few spots, I think they would feel a lot better about taking Derek Queen. But if a Noah Singh is on the board, who else? Johnson's on the board, you probably see Washington pass up on the hometown kid. I kind of hope he stays at home. I hope he stays with Washington. I think that would be a great story. But Washington's at 6. And I don't know if I take him at 6. I don't think so. Not for my money. Not in this particular draft. So, yeah, that's what I say at Derek Queen, though. Very unique basketball player. Probably one of the most unique players we've seen over the last several years. Just because of how comfortable he is with the ball in his hands. How well he finishes. The fact that he can't shoot, but he's that big and has these skills. He's just very unique. You don't find too many players with those exact attributes ever, really. You don't. Combination of Andre Blatch and a few other big guys come to mind. A burly Lamar Odom, a big chubby Lamar Odom that can't really defend or shoot the 3 that well. So it's not really Lamar. I don't know. You get the point. Very unique player. All right, who else are we talking about, man? Next name I want to get into is Jeremiah Fears. And I think I'm higher on Jeremiah Fears right now than I was last time I talked to you about him. The last time we talked about him, more or less the idea was that he can't really finish well. He can't really shoot the 3 well, but he has phenomenal ball handling skills. So he's by far the best dribbler of the basketball in this draft, easily. He has better handles than anybody in the draft. But does he actually stretch the floor? Does he actually finish well around the rim? I think some of the finishing conversations, now that I've done a little more homework on him, I think a lot of the deficiencies in the efficiency scoring around the rim comes from him needing to get stronger. I think that his passing ability and his playmaking ability should be given more credence than I was able to give it last time I talked about him. He's a very good passer, doesn't turn the ball over very much versus, assist to turnover ratio is pretty good with him, one of the best in this year's class. So that needs to be taken into account. And some of the mechanics shooting the ball has, even though he doesn't shoot that well, they look promising. And a lot of his issues have to do with strength and consistency and just reps. So when you talk about picking up a guy that you expect can get a lot better, he's one of the templates in this league, this draft rather, that you can say, okay, I see where there are opportunities for him to get a lot better. And so I feel comfortable about taking him a little sooner than maybe I would some of these other guys that are a little more difficult to project, only because I think a lot of his deficiencies cater to him having a young body and needing to get stronger, which every player in the league is going to be in the gym 24/7 if they have the work ethic to do so. The strength will come. He'll fill out his body, and as he does, he'll become a better finisher, likely a better three-point shooter. And as he becomes more mature, I think the tools to become a decent defender were what I saw in the homework I did recently. He has some issues, not mind issues, but like mindlessness. He tends to be a bit absent-minded on the defensive end. Doesn't always have the focus in. A lot of that has to do with being a youngster. A lot of that has to do with his offensive responsibilities. He probably wasn't taught how to defend very well. So he's going to need a coach and a system that's going to allow for that to be kind of be hidden a little bit, while they hold him accountable for being more focused and a bit more driven on the defensive end. But they showed in the video that I watched one sequence where you could see if he really buckles down, he really is focused on the defensive end, if he's motivated, that he could play some damn sound defense. So that's what I think of Jeremiah Fears. I just think that the template for him to be a much better player is pretty obvious. And the things that he has that are really good, you can't teach. And so that is exactly what you're looking for in a 19-year-old, 18-year-old guy. Do you have things I can't teach? Are the things you know good at based on things that we can control? Yes and yes. So I feel a lot better about Jeremiah Fears than I did before last night doing homework. So that's what I want to say. Much higher on Jeremiah Fears right now. I don't know that equates to me taking him anywhere sooner than probably 7 or 8. I can see Washington being interested, but I see him more going probably Brooklyn, New Orleans. I can see that's kind of the range I think he's going to probably fall to. 7, 8, 9, something like that. That's where I see. But I'm higher on him, but that's where I had him drafted anyway. So me being higher on him doesn't change where I think he gets drafted because of the situation. It's not necessarily about him being good or bad. It's about how much these teams really need what he does. And so I don't think too many of those teams in that first top 5 range really need what he does. I don't think so. But I think he could very easily make an all-star team if he does work on getting much stronger and just overall being a more focused defensive player and get a good coach around him, kind of exploit some of the stuff that he needs done. I would like to see him go to a team that needs a playmaker, man. Now that I know he has such playmaking ability and so good at that area, I'd like to see him go to a team that has trouble with ball movement, and or a team that wants to start the process of building and need that piece. And so that's the kind of vision I have for Jeremiah Fears. If Brooklyn's going to be moving on from D'Angelo Russell, I totally see a fit there. And I think that's probably the spot that I see best for him. I think Brooklyn's probably one of the best places for most of these guys in the top 6, 7 range, to be honest with you. Because they're a team that's starting over. And that's what these teams need. I could also see him being in a good spot if he goes to Toronto. Because I heard that they may be moving on from Emmanuel quickly. And if that's the case, they could definitely use a lead guard. So I like him in Toronto as well for Jeremiah Fears or any of the young guards, Yaku Shonis, Johnson. I think Toronto, if quickly is moving on, could be a great spot for those guys. Yeah, let's talk about Johnson. Trey Johnson. I don't particularly like that prospect. I know everybody does, and they think he's going to make a couple all-star teams. Such a gifted scorer. I hate the fact that he's not explosive, because you're going to put the ball in his hands a lot of the time. And like Ace Bailey, he's a tough shot taker, bad shot taker. That's what it really comes down to, because he's so gifted shooting the ball, which is no doubt he is. You want to put the ball in his hands all the time and ask him to be an all-star. The problem is, another D'Lo Russell comparison, he doesn't really have a whole lot of explosiveness at the rim. Now, you got to give D'Lo credit because he's an excellent finisher anyway. When you consider what his deficiencies are, he's an anomaly in that regard. A guy who's not that athletic, doesn't have a whole lot of explosiveness, but still makes most of his layups. I don't know that Trey Johnson's that guy. I don't think he has a whole lot of explosiveness, and he ain't really particularly great finishing the ball. What you got him doing, he's more like a Lou Williams. A Lou Williams, you can hit all types of shots around the perimeter, hit all types of shots from the mid-range. Once you start getting him into the lane, he's going to the ground. It's not gonna be a whole lot of success there until he puts on a significant amount of strength and explosiveness. And so I think that his playmaking is something that is polarizing. People don't look at him as a piece that really moves the ball very much, but I did see a portion of a video yesterday where they broke down that his ability to pass the ball is a bit better than people give it credit for. So I'm of the mindset that maybe there's some upside for Johnson to be more of a connective piece than what people expect him to be. But ultimately, I think that you could have some issues with some overshooting there. He's a piece that's going to look to take 15, 20 shots. I think he's very efficient, but because I don't believe that he's going to finish at the paint, and I think he's a high injury risk because of his slight frame in that way, and the fact that he really doesn't defend very well, I'm really concerned about him as a piece that may not project to me worth what people are drafting him to be. They want him to be this multi-time all-star, but I think people just put a great deal of emphasis on shot making, which is an excellent trait, but it's like they overrate players who can do what he does, and they underrate players who have no ability in that way. And there are just other aspects of basketball that need to be considered. And so for me, I like Johnson in the 10 range, 11 range, because I don't put as much emphasis on that shot making as most basketball people do. I think it's an important tool, but if you're underutilized connective piece, you don't have any explosive in the paint, you don't particularly find yourself good defensively, then this is another one of them prospects that have some deficiencies in some areas that I don't like together. And while if people were judging him the way that I think he should be judged, he's an excellent prospect in the middle of the lottery, the early, lottery, somewhere 7, 8, 9, 10. That's where I like Johnson. People are taking him as early as 3, seeing him go to Utah at 5, and I just think that's a little too high for the deficiencies that he has collaborating with one another. Expecting him to be some great scorer is definitely good. He's a 17-point per game scorer in college. He can shoot with the best of them. He really can. He's an excellent shooter. Fun to watch too. But his handle is not overly advanced. You're going to put the ball in his hands. He's not particularly great at the rim. No explosiveness. Likely looking to take teardrops even when he has a layup type stuff. I just think it's just, if I'm drafting Lou Williams, I'm going to be happy. If I think I'm drafting something else, something better than that, something greater, Hall of Fame, I'm going to be unhappy. And if I'm drafting him in a situation like Utah, where they got 7 guards, I'm not going to get the most out of him. And I'm not going to get the most out of them other guards. And he's not specifically gifted in making other people better, even though he may be underrated in that way. So for me, I was sitting there watching his highlights. I'm like, yo, he's a great shooter. But I don't know that he does really anything else for me. And I'm a person who watches for defense, connectability, and then when I have enough players that are toolsy enough to rebound, shot blocking, when I have all of that, then I'm gonna go give me a Trey Johnson to finish it off my building process. If I'm going to need those other things, I'm not gonna find the shot maker first. I'm not gonna bring myself a shot maker and then have him out there jucking up shots and we down by 40 because nobody else is getting the ball and most of the other players ain't no good. So that's just my team building philosophy. I'd rather have him be something I find last rather than first. And I think some of these teams are still trying to build and they don't have all those things, but they're gonna go after Trey Johnson, and I don't know if I agree with that. So yeah, I'm lower on Trey Johnson than like 99% of the consensus. I think everybody agrees that this is a fantastic all-star level player that can just score with the best of them, and I don't disagree. Problem is, I don't think that if that's what I'm focused on, I don't think that I'm going to win basketball games. I need to get the other stuff too, and I think a lot of these guys, I don't think he's going to be going to a situation where they have a lot of that everywhere else. And I think there's a lot of that in this draft, that you know, those things that fit, that make it so that you can have more defensive ability, more toolsy players, size and stuff like that. I just think that I can't see myself in this particular draft with such a plethora of all those other things going after a shot maker. I just can't see it, man. And I'm alone on that. I truly believe I'm alone on that. I think most people love Trey Johnson in that 5'4" range. They may even take him over VJ Edgecombe. I've heard some people take him over Ace Bailey in certain situations. I can see that based on the polarizing aspect of Ace Bailey and how he's similar to him in some ways, although Ace has the tools and the athleticism that he doesn't have. But they both are fantastic scorers, project to be all-stars. But you know, I think Trey for me is more flash. He's the things that look pretty that don't actually lead to winning. That's what it really is to me. Like, you can have a guy like that, he's going to be the best player on a team that wins 20 games. That's the kind of player I think he's actually going to be if teams don't be careful when bringing him to their situation without some of those other things necessary. And so that's really my point of view. I just don't know if I see him as somebody who fits and that he's going to need so much around him to help him be a part of a winning situation concerns me. That he could be targeted defensively takes away from my expectations for how well he's going to be able to contribute to winning. You know, so that's my concern. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I need to see more footage on him. Maybe I just put too little of an emphasis on shooting and shot making. But I tell you, man, I grew up playing the game 2K, and the prospects that I usually tried to create and used in my situation always had the ability to defend and pass. Those are things that I usually went towards. And he can't do neither one of those things, so maybe that's just a preference issue for me. I just don't love my guards that are not particularly big, don't particularly finish well in the paint, don't particularly pass well, don't particularly defend well, it's just a lot of stuff that he doesn't do that I think contributes to winning. And the thing that he does, I think, contributes to people being excited about players because they grew up, loving shot making. The Steph Curry era, shot making, which is an important, very important part of your game. It's a very important aspect to basketball, making baskets. Believe me, I agree. And you need that stuff. If you have nothing but toolsy guys and nobody who can do what he does, you ain't winning no games. I get that and I respect that. Especially after watching Denver be so good down the stretch of basketball games over the last several years, executing so well. He is a high-level execution jump shooter. That is valuable to me. I don't let him fall out of my lottery by any stretch of the imagination. But I can't get with the idea that he's just, like, I'm going to win because I have this player. I don't think so. I really don't think so. I think he's going to be scoring a lot. I think he's going to be giving up a lot. And if you don't have those other players that do those things that he doesn't do, you're going to be down a lot. And that's what I think is coming there. Not a huge believer there, but he could be a good player just the same. So The next piece I want to talk about, probably the last piece I want to talk about, probably somebody I should talk about more, is Kon Knueppel, man. I did a lot of homework on Kon Knueppel on Monday, I believe it was, or Tuesday. Today's Wednesday. So yeah, yesterday afternoon, Tuesday. Did a lot of homework on him, watched about an hour of footage, 2 different videos that were about 30 minutes long on him, people talking about him, because I just wanted to get an understanding of what it is that he can do. And I walk away a fan. I walk away a fan of Kon Knueppel. Kon Knueppel reminds me of those dudes that people say are plumbers from the 50s and the 60s. The white dude, but the best one. That's what he reminds me of. I saw somebody make a meme today, and they were saying that very thing about a different player. I don't remember who they were talking about. They said if this player played in the 50s, they'd be the best player in the world. They would be the equivalent. I don't remember who it was they were talking about, but I didn't agree with it. But for that, I think of Kon Knueppel. Kon Knueppel is the guy that in 1965 is a Hall of Famer. The white guy that shoot like the wind. Obviously, the three-point shot wasn't really big back then. He can really shoot it. But the mid-range shot, not going to have too much flair on his layups, but he's going to hit all his layups. He's going to get to the line, going to hit a bunch of free throws. On the defensive end, he's going to be tough, diving for loose balls. There was even a possession where his teammate was on one leg, falling out of bounds, and he grabbed his teammate's opposite leg to keep him from falling out of bounds. Like, this guy is a winner. That's what I want people to understand. After walking away from Kon Knueppel highlights, this is a winner. He is going to do the TJ McConnell things that help you win. He's going to do the things, the little things that are going to be the difference. He's going to be the quicker guy to the loose ball. He's going to hit the big shot. He's going to get to the line at the right time. He's going to finish a lot of the time doing non-flair stuff. He is a plumber, but a great one. That's what I say about him. And that's going to sound disrespectful or even racist to a lot of people, but I compare it to that template of what people used to say about these guys. Could they play in the modern era? Kon Knueppel is from that era. He's going to prove he can. He's going to prove he's the guy that can prove to you that who's a good name? I can't think of no names right now. My mind's gone blank. But those guys that are well before my time could play in the modern NBA because he has their athleticism, he has their basketball IQ, he has their shooting ability, he has their intangibles, their winnings, their smarts, and he has their body type. And that's why I think I'm higher on him right now than I was on some of these other guys. Now, the problem is that because he's so limited athletically, and because those things contribute so much to winning as well, you would be foolish to bring him to a non-athletic situation. You'd be absolutely foolish to bring him to a non-athletic situation. But if he has the right amount of toolsy guys around him, he has the rim protector, if he has the players that are around him that don't do the things that he does and it can make up for the speed differential and the athleticism differential, then he's going to be the guy that's going to get the guys the ball in their shooting pockets. He's going to be able to catch the ball and shoot and make a lot of plays. He's going to put the ball on the ground, be efficient at the rim. He's going to be efficient around the mid-range. He doesn't have too many holes, and he has good enough size. He's a big enough size guy at the 2-3 spot that you can see him playing multiple positions, and he's smart enough defensively to make up for the things that he cannot do with the length and the tools that are not there. This is going to be a good player, man. And when you're in an era where Luka Doncic is the 3rd best player in basketball, without all the flair layups and stuff like that, without the explosive dunking and all of that, Kon Knueppel, you feel better about being able to translate in similar ways. Now, he is not Luka the Don. He's not even Luka the Don light. I'm not even promoting that. I'm just simply saying, like Luka, there's not a whole lot of flair to his layups. It's using the backboard, you know what I mean? Positioning himself just right, scoring the ball. He's not looking to do a whole lot of up and unders, and he's not flying all over the place. And because of that, you got to draft him accordingly. I don't see myself taking him over guys who are explosive like Ace Bailey. And ain't no way I'm going to do that or VJ Edgecombe, because I respect athleticism to that degree. I respect speed to that degree. I don't even know if I take him over Noah Singh, to be honest with you. But I know he can help me more than them dudes can sooner. And I know if they don't learn how to play ball better, he's going to have a long-lasting career in the NBA that they're not going to have. So as long as I can make up for the fact that I'm not getting explosiveness and athleticism from him, if I already had that stuff in place, and I need somebody who's just going to make my team good, and somebody's going to take us to the next level and win some basketball games, Dr. Nipple's who I need to bring in. And because he's such an efficient three-point shooter, he stretches the floor about as well as anybody in this draft, you value him even higher. If he couldn't shoot that well, I would value him very high. But that he shoots so very well, now it's like, well, you got to probably take him in the top 5, top 10, rather. And so, yeah, that's what I got to say, man. I honestly, and this is after doing homework on both of these players back-to-back, honestly like him better than I like Trey Johnson right now. Because Trey Johnson, to me, is not as reliable to make other people better. That's what it really comes down to. Trey Johnson's looking to get his own, and you're going to win that way. Even though the passing is a little better than people say it is, this Knipple guy is also more translatable in the 3 spot rather than just solidified as a 2 or a 1, as Trey Johnson appears to be more of a 2, not even a 1. He's a 2, like pure 2. I like more positional switchability, positional variance, I guess is what I can say. And I think that Knipple is one of the guys that gives me more positional variance. I don't necessarily want him at the 1 because he's not that great of a ball handler, but he is a fantastic connective piece that's going to make other people better. He's going to be making passes all over the place. He's going to become much better of a passer than he is right now, I think, if he goes to the right situation with enough talented offensive weapons around him. And he's big enough to be serviceable playing the 3 on both sides of the floor. And so I'm higher on Knipple than I ever was, man. I look at him as proof that them dudes from the 50s and 60s could play in this era. He's going to prove that because he's one of them dudes. He looked like he came out of that era, and if he played in that era, he would dominate that era. So that's what I see with that particular piece, man. But yeah, man, that's pretty much it. I got to where I need to go. And I appreciate everybody for allowing me to talk to you about these basketball prospects. Of course, there's more homework to do. There's more prospects to talk about, but I think I got into the ones that I wanted to give you in this video. So that's pretty much what I got to say. My name is BDF44. I thank you all for watching.